Welcome everyone to this 2026 primary Canvas monitoring training. Today's training will use lessons from prior elections to help us all prepare for this year's uh, uh, primary election and for the upcoming general election. We're going to cover three main things tonight. Why we are monitoring the county boards of elections, or CBOEs as we call them, what happens during Canvas and pre-Canvas meetings, and what to be looking for, and how you can join this important effort. Um, so, Canvas monitoring is an opportunity to witness one of the most important aspects of our elections, build local relationships, accountability, and community empowerment, flag local election problems, concerns, or challenges, help achieve better election policies in the short and long term. And some of you may have participated in Canvas monitoring before. And for those of you who have, we are incredibly thankful. And for others of you, this may be your first time. There have been several election law changes uh, that will affect this year's Canvas in comparison to previous years. Um, Although not a whole lot from um, the last municipal election. But if you have not monitored since 2024, there have been some changes. And our goal is to prepare you for everything you need to know, whether this is a refresher or your first time. So, appointed county boards are made up of 5 members. This includes 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, recommended by state Democratic and Republican Party chairs and appointed by the State Board of Elections. The state auditor appoints the chair of each county board, and this is a change. Previously, the governor appointed the chair. Um, and each board hires a county director of elections, and that person runs the office and manages a county board of elections staff, which operates the election. So I am going to turn it over to Lucas now to talk about what the Day of Canvas is and why it is so important.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Uh, Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. It's really makes me feel good to see that we have such a good group here and that we had such a good group a couple of weeks ago, and just reassures the fact that we're going to make sure that our elections are protected this year and we're doing all we can. So, thank y'all again. But I am with Democracy North Carolina, and I'm talking a little bit about what Canvas is exactly. So, although most people believe elections are decided on election night, you actually have to certify every election with confidence. And that is where the election canvas comes into play. The post-election county canvas process occurs after every election in all 100 counties across North Carolina. In fact, the canvas is so important because it includes the entire process of ensuring all of our votes have been counted correctly and required audits have been completed, culminating in the certification of election results. All this takes place during meetings held at each county board of elections. The day of canvass, then, is when your county board of elections, including the 5 member board members, as Tyler just talked about, assisted by the elections director and staff, finally compile election results from all precincts and officially report the outcome of the election within the county. By law, all county boards will meet at 11 a.m. on the 10th day after the election. So this year, it will be Friday, March 13th, to complete the canvass of votes cast and authenticate the count in every ballot type by determining that the votes have been counted correctly. In most cases, the canvass meeting is held at the County Board of Elections office. And don't worry about stuff like that. We'll make sure to send out information afterwards too, and we'll make sure that you know where to go for Day of Canvass. County Board of Elections also hold public board meetings before the Day of Canvass as they begin to process and count mail ballots and provisional ballots. The county boards have been meeting weekly on Tuesdays during the 5 weeks prior to Election Day to review absentee ballots. And they also hold absentee review meetings on the day before Election Day and Election Day itself. So there's still some coming up next Monday and next Tuesday across. our areas across the state. Most pre-Canvas meetings are expected to happen during the period after Election Day until the day of Canvas, which is which is Wednesday, March 4th through Friday, March 13th. Due to the new provisional ballot review deadline, most counties will meet on Friday, March 6th to review provisional ballots. Some counties may schedule additional pre-canvass meetings in between, especially on Thursday, March 12th. In counties that hold provisional and pre-canvass meetings, they will often make the most important and contentious decisions during those meetings. In past election cycles, many of the canvass issues emerged during these pre-canvass meetings, and while different from county to county, they remain some of the most important parts of the process to monitor. We hope that you will consider attending as many of these important provisional and pre-Canvas meetings as you can, in addition to the final day of Canvas. But of course, there's quite a few that could be happening. So if you don't have the time to be with the Board of Elections, that's okay. Back in 2024, I feel like I was a Board of Election staff member with how many Board of Election meetings I was in. I know that Tyler and a lot of our other people up here can attest to that as well. Following the county canvass, the five-member state board of elections, assisted by the state board of elections director and staff, approves the official election results. These results are then submitted to the state board of elections, which holds its own canvass meeting and certifies the statewide election results once all counties have been submitted. So as you can see, it's quite the process. And just to take away with and tell others about is that election day is not the end of the election by far. There's a lot that happens in between, and it's important that we be there to make sure that things go going correctly. So now you may have been asking, if you've never been to a day of Canvas before, which is completely okay. We're happy to have you here tonight. What exactly can you expect? What pre-Canvas or day of Canvas meetings look like depends on the county. Many smaller counties host these meetings in a conference room within the County Board of Elections office. However, in Wake County, the largest county in the state, it has historically taken place in a big warehouse. While the settings can be different, attendees to these public meetings are often similar. So here's who you'll typically see there. You'll see the appointed County Board of Elections chair, who generally leads the meeting. They are joined by four board members. Right now, that's, as Tyler was just talking about, two Democrats, two Republicans, and the chair, who was a Republican appointed by the state auditor. And then, of course, you also have your County Board of Elections director and likely members of their staff. Also, any member of the public who wishes to witness the vote count is allowed to do so. So you may see some voters interested in being heard on their disputed or challenged ballots. You could also see partisan observers, potentially from various local, state, and/or federal campaigns, attorneys potentially representing voters, groups, or campaigns, advocacy groups observing proceedings based on interest they serve, and members of the media who are reporting on the election results. And so we'll see what that looks like for the primary. If any of y'all did canvas monitoring back in the 2024 general election, you saw many people there. You saw many of these people there. So it varies on on what all's going on there and what kind of what kind of things are on the ballot. So, but be sure you will see the five county board of election members in the county elections director too. Um, there should also be seats for the public to watch the proceedings, which will feature the board chair, board members, and elections director, likely seated in the front of the room where election officials can examine and pass along ballots and ask questions, and make determinations in public view, while also maintaining the privacy of the voters' ballots. In smaller counties, these meetings may take place in small conference rooms, so don't be surprised if you're squeezed into a corner. Yeah, and if it comes down to it, like I don't know, you guys know those little like pop out stools, like camping stools. If it comes down to it, you may need one of those for some of these smaller counties. But yeah, that is Canvas, briefly an overview of what it is and what it'll look like. So thank you, and I'll pass it over to Adrian.
Hi, y'all. I'm Adrienne Spoto, Counsel for Voting Rights at Southern Coalition for Social Justice. And now that we've heard more about Canvas, I'm going to go over some tips for what you should be doing before, during, and after any of these County Board of Elections meetings. So first, before the meeting, do check the date and time for your assigned county to confirm when the meeting's happening and where. We have a list of currently scheduled meetings, and that'll be available to you in a link that we'll send out after the training. But we recommend that you still call your assigned county board to confirm that time and location on the day before the meeting, especially if you'll be driving some distance from home to get there. Dates and agendas might also be listed on the county board's website, so you can always check that, but we still encourage that you make that call. Canvas schedules can be kind of in flux depending on how much the county board needs to do, especially with how tight these deadlines are. So you want to make sure the meeting that you're expecting to happen is still happening when and where you think it is. You can find your county board's phone number at the link that's in the slide here, ccnc.me/yourBOE. Once you know when and where the Canvas meetings are happening for your county, you'll want to plan to arrive early. So that way you can save your seat in case it's crowded, and hopefully you don't have to sit on one of those pop-up stools. And also this gives you a chance to introduce yourself to any county board staff or county board members. You can take that time to ask how you might inquire if you or another member of the public ends up needing to ask a question during the meeting, how best to do that. Taking the time to introduce yourself is really helpful. It's a good opportunity to start building relationships with the folks in your county who are making these critical elections decisions. Also during the meeting, once the meeting starts, please do take detailed notes about everything that's going on. We do strongly recommend that you bring a tablet or a laptop to type notes on, so you're not having to decode handwriting afterwards. Also, please do remain nonpartisan at all times. Please don't wear any political partisan t-shirts, buttons, things like that to these meetings. Do ask questions. During breaks in the process, feel free to politely walk up to a county board member or a staff member and ask about anything that you're wondering about that's been going on during the meeting, anything that's got you confused, especially if you're having trouble hearing. Or if there's some discussion during the meeting that's a carryover from a prior meeting that you weren't at and you're having trouble following it. All these things are great things to bring up as questions to board members or staff. These meetings are public meetings, they're our meetings. And so you deserve to be able to follow and understand what's going on. Also, if there's any documentation that they're offering to the public, such as handouts, please do grab that. Sometimes they'll have print-ups of the meeting agenda, more information about the kinds of ballots they're reviewing, things along those lines, and they can be really helpful resources, both to you and for us afterwards. Also, please do call or text the Nonpartisan Election Protection Hotline at 888-OUR-VOTE right away if you witness certain problems, which we'll talk about more in a bit, or if you just have questions about what's going on, especially if there's someone else who's present at the meeting to take notes while you step out. Or if there's a break during the meeting, that's another good time that you can call the hotline if you have questions about something that's going on. And just remember, calling the hotline, and in doing so, documenting problems or questions that are coming up in these county board meetings can be really helpful to the work of all of us election protection organizations that are monitoring concerns raised by voters and volunteers alike. So once the meeting's done, please do, if you didn't have a chance to call or text the hotline about some issues that came up, after the meeting's another good opportunity to do that. Please also submit your Canvas report form. We ask that you do that the same day, if at all possible. That way, we have a good idea of what's going on in the counties. We know if we need to be following up on any particular issues, any time-sensitive things. So please do get those reports in the same day. And if there were any handouts or papers distributed during the meeting, please do scan or take pictures of those and submit those with your form. So we've covered what you should do during a meeting. Now let's also cover a few things you should not do. Most importantly, do not interfere with the Canvas process or be disruptive in any way during these meetings. Please don't touch or mark any ballots or photograph or handle any election materials. While we encourage you to take pictures of handouts, things that have been distributed to the public, please don't take pictures of any ballots. Again, please don't display or wear any political or partisan paraphernalia. If there is someone else in the meeting who's being loud or disruptive, please don't engage with them, challenge them, like get pulled into an argument with them. You want to disengage. And then lastly, please don't rely solely on recordings or videos of the meeting rather than taking notes. We really do count on those notes to be able to understand what's going on in all these 100 counties and how they're handling all of their responsibilities for elections. Sometimes you might think, oh, this meeting is being recorded, so I'm fine to just go back to the recording later to jot down some notes from that. But you might find, oh, someone forgot to press the record button during the meeting, or maybe the county board's members or staff, you just can't hear them as well in the recording. So you're always going to want to be taking those notes so that you're sure you've got down all the things you need to. So as is becoming pretty clear throughout this conversation, your role as a Canvas monitor, your big purpose is to watch for whatever comes up and take detailed notes on as much of it as possible so that election experts can assess if there were problems during the process. So let's go over some of the main things that you're going to want to watch for and document during a County Board of Elections Canvas or pre-Canvas meeting. First, just the basics. Who's speaking? You'll want to identify in your notes as best as you can who's in the room, which county board members are present. Is the director there? How about other staff members? Any impacted voters? Any other observers, including people with political parties? Maybe attorneys are there. Making note of who's present and who's speaking on particular issues is really helpful. Also, overall numbers and outcomes. You're going to hear a lot of numbers at these Canvas meetings. And so you'll want to jot down if they say how many absentee ballots total came in, how many they're counting, how many they aren't, how many provisional ballots they had, how many they're counting, how many they aren't. Any other like subcategories or other information that they provide about those ballots, any laws that are mentioned, any voters that are named, especially if any voters are being challenged. And then in addition to getting this baseline information, these numbers, what is and isn't counting and how that's working, it's also helpful to make note of the reasoning, any reasoning that the board shares behind their decisions, and who specifically on the board was voting one way or another on counting or discounting a particular ballot. So turning to some more specifics, the two most common ballot issues or categories you'll be hearing about are absentee and provisional ballots. So we want to talk about those a little bit more, starting with absentee. For mail-in absentee voting, the board might be discussing individual voters, their ballots, and their issues, including, for example, ballots that didn't include all the required information or that arrived late. For some context, mail ballots need to be submitted in the provided envelope with 2 proper witness signatures or a notary signature, as well as the voter's own signature. So there can be issues with any of those aspects of the ballot. Also, mail-in absentee ballots are due to the County Board of Elections by 7:30 p.m. on election day itself. There's no longer a grace period for them to arrive after election day. That deadline doesn't apply to this group of military and overseas voters, but for most voters, that deadline is going to be 7:30 p.m. on election day. You might also hear at these meetings about absentee ballots that were received by the deadline but have certain deficiencies, certain problems with them that can be fixed by the voter or cured. The deadline for voters to make those cures is March 6th at noon. And the issues that a voter can cure will generally involve either the voter's signature or photo ID, which we'll get more into in a bit. If the voter doesn't cure that ballot by the March 6th at noon deadline, then their ballot will be rejected. And some other reasons why an absentee ballot might be rejected include if it arrives late after that 7:30 p.m. deadline. If it was missing witness information or notary information, if it was returned by someone who's not statutorily eligible to return that absentee ballot, or if they failed to include a copy of photo ID or a properly completed ID exception form. So these are all things to be listening for, making note of if the board mentions particular issues with particular absentee ballots, and so on. The county boards are going to be assessing these during pre-election and pre-canvass meetings, and then, as mentioned, they'll be finalizing and authenticating those counts on the day of canvass on March 13th. So now let's also talk about provisional ballots. These are seen a lot in cases of registration or voter ID problems. So the board will be reviewing these. You might hear them discussing the validity of all or some of a ballot cast by a voter if there's questions about their qualifications and eligibility, either to vote at all or to vote the specific ballot with the specific races that they voted in. So some of the most common provisional ballot categories you'll hear about are out of precinct voters, people who ended up going to vote on election day at a different site other than the one they're assigned based on their address. Assuming that they did this to another site in their county, their vote will be counted, but it'll only be counted for the races that they're eligible for. So you'll hear this referred to as a partially counted ballot. Another really big category of provisionals is voters who had no record of registration when they showed up to the polls. The county board is supposed to research these, try to see if they can track down a record of registration or an attempt at a registration. You'll also see voters who were previously removed from the voter rolls, who then appear to vote. Another category is jurisdiction disputes, where a voter didn't have an eligible ballot style or they requested to vote in a contest that's not in their assigned district. There's a bunch of other provisional categories you'll hear as well, and that we ask that you note down. But some good key tips for what you should be documenting in your notes when it comes to provisional ballots. Number of voters with ID issues, number of voters with registration issues, and what those registration issues were. This is especially important to make note if you hear about someone who had registered at the DMV but didn't appear on the rolls on election day. And then also the number of eligibility issues that might have been discussed and what those were. For example, if a voter voted at that wrong precinct on election day, and making note of whether their ballot was counted as it should have been. Another thing, in addition to these ballot-specific situations that you'll want to be documenting, you'll want to document really anything else that comes up in the meeting. Process questions like whether the county board failed to do like the appropriate outreach or research to try to verify those provisional ballots. If a county board member mentions or staff member mentions that a lot of students ended up having to vote provisionally, that's something we've heard in the past. Any other details or information about how voting, including provisional voting, is working in this county is really helpful to us. And now I'll pass it to Caitlin.
Thanks so much, Adrienne. Hey, everyone. I'm Caitlin Metzger, Deputy Director of You Can Vote, and I'm going to dive into voter ID. So next up, voters should have been allowed to vote one of the following, right? They can either vote a regular ballot if they presented to vote and reasonably resembled their photo ID with a substantially similar name. That's how it's written in the law. Alternatively, they could have voted a provisional ballot that is counted if the voter correctly filled out that ID exception form, or a provisional ballot and be allowed to verify their identity by providing an approved ID to the County Board of Elections later after Election Day. Remember that deadline is the Friday after Election Day on March 6th at noon. So anybody who had to vote a provisional ballot but didn't have the correct documentation on them can go back and provide that documentation before or on March 6th. There will also be some provisional ballots cast by voters who either need to return to show their voter ID to the County Board of Elections or who have submitted a voter ID exception form. So those are kind of the categories that you'll hear from. So first, let me make sure we're on the right. Yep. If any voter is unable to show a photo ID when voting, whether they vote in person or by mail, they are going to fill out what's called a voter ID exception form and vote a provisional ballot. Exceptions on that form include things like reasonable impediments, which by law include things like lack of transportation, disability or illness, lack of birth certificate or other documentation needed to obtain an ID, if they have a work schedule or family responsibilities, lost or stolen photo ID, if they're an absentee voter, if they were unable to attach a photocopy of their photo ID, they vote with that exception form. There's also a space called other reasonable impediment. And if other is selected, the voter must have written the reason on the form or mark that a state or federal law prohibits them from listing the reason. So you might hear some people say, or some voters talked about that said marked other and didn't write a reason. And that's a flag to know. The other impediments are a religious objection to being photographed or a victim of a natural disaster within 100 days of election day. So any of those reasons might be talked about, and please do make note of those. We have seen in previous election during Canvass and pre-Canvass meetings that some Board of Elections members disagreed about whether to count reasonable impediments when those voters indicated them on the ID exception form. Any impediment that could prevent a voter from showing a photo ID when they present to vote is valid. County boards of elections must count those provisional ballots with a properly completed ID exception form. However, keep in mind, county boards should not judge how reasonable they perceive the exception to be, and they are not supposed to be conducting independent research about the truthfulness of the form. So if you hear members have their personal opinion, that is something to note and document and call the hotline. ID exception forms should only be rejected if the County Board of Elections finds unanimously, that's 5-0, that the form was either not properly completed prior to the day of canvass, or if all 5 members agree that they have grounds to believe the information on the form is false. That's going to be pretty rare, but if there's talk about that, again, please document that and let us know. In the past, absentee ballot review meetings have seen some disagreements among some board members regarding these approvals. When monitoring pre-canvass and canvass meetings, please document any decisions that the county board makes regarding photo ID exception forms that are not unanimous, including which members voted which way, and any kind of reasonings given for their votes. If a county board of elections rejects a voter's ID exception form for the reasons other than what we just talked about, the 2 reasons that we talked about, it is best to call or text the voter hotline right away to let us know. And I know some folks are probably scribbling notes, but we will send you these slides, and we will also give you this information on a form to take with you. So I know that was kind of technical and a lot of technical terms. We will help you know and remember them the day of. I'm going to pass it over to Michaela.
Hello, everyone. I am Michaela. I am with North Carolina Black Alliance as the Democracy and Economy Program Coordinator, and I'm happy to be here with you all today. So we're going to talk about some other issues that you may encounter and that you want to document. Also document other issues such as voter challenges and hearings. What does that mean? So a voter challenge is when a voter's right to register, remain registered, or vote is challenged. After changes to the law passed last year, a voter can now be challenged by any voter in their county up to 5 days after Election Day. The burden of proof is on the challenger, but the challenged voter might have to provide proof of eligibility. Make note of whether voters were challenged, including their names and whether it was sustained by the board. You also might see same-day registration problems. Were there any same-day registration ballots being challenged or denied? And if so, making sure that you're documenting how many. Was there any discussion of mailings, verifications being sent to same-day registration, voters and those mailings being returned? Any accounts of damaged ballots or voting machines and tabulator issues? And so when it comes to flagging an issue to the hotline that we were referring to earlier, 888-OUR-VOTE, which is also 888-687-8683, it's important that you trust your gut. Some examples of important issues that we'd like to hear about in your county include voter challenges or election protest, We would want to hear more about voter ID exception forms being rejected without a valid reason. And so County Board of Elections must count provisional ballots with properly completed ID exception forms. County Board of Election members decide to go into closed sessions without stating why. And if they state why it seems a little suspect, we want to know about that. Incidents of intimidation that are directed at voters, elected officials, or election officials or poll workers. Public or voters denied access to the Canvass meeting, and this includes virtual meetings, audio or visual or poor visuals. Incidents of mis or disinformation documented in the county. County Board of Election members not allowing the public to ask questions or failing to provide information, reasons, or explanations for their actions, especially for spoiling or rejecting a vote. If any impacted voters show up to be heard and to conduct a synopsis of their issues, as these stories are really important to making sure that we're bringing awareness to these issues that are impacting voters in our state and doing the really important work of protecting our elections. You want to make sure that you collect names, emails, and phone numbers for follow-up. And if possible, connecting impacted voters to election experts on the hotline. Remember, if you're not sure whether it rises to this level, just reach out to the hotline anyway. We'd rather be safe than sorry in these instances. As always, you can call the hotline, once again, 888-R-VOTE, but you can also text the number, which might be easier during meetings. These texts will go to real people. Now, you may be wondering, what is going to happen with all of this information I'm reporting to you? Is anyone going to read it? Tyler's going to answer that for you. Passing it over to him.
Thank you, Michaela. And yes, the answer is yes. Yes, we read everything that you submit. For those of you, if you attended our County Board of Elections monitoring overview a couple weeks ago, we shared a report that we released based upon your reports from the 2024 election. And so your reporting is vital for us to be able to do this. Our organizations, along with the League of Women Voters, share reports regularly and collaborate on how to respond. With your reports, we can identify problems with the process and again, help voters in real time in some instances, especially when you call the hotline or text it. And then identify the numbers and types of voters who have been impacted. Sometimes just getting information on the number of provisional ballots or the types of provisional ballots, that gives us really good information to know how election laws are impacting voters in the state. And then advocating for better election policies and voting access, including meaningful litigation and legislation that can help make a difference for one voter or for all voters. And again, that report is a great example of that, which we're able to share with legislators, and it really provides us great insight going forward. So, yes, this is such vital information. We can't, do our work without you. And so, what you see here is the report form, ccnc.me/CBOE report. Yeah, just use that link. You don't have to remember it because we are going to send a follow-up email with that link, but that is where you will go to submit your reports after you have attended your meetings. So I do want to just mention an example of the impact of monitoring these meetings. If you, again, attended our overview, we talked about a few other examples, including a legal monitor that was in Rockingham County who was able to report issues and ended up saving the ballots of dozens of voters. And um, I wanted to bring up this example out of Surrey County, in which a monitor's report of county canvass meetings in 2022 and 2023 led to the identification of two Board of Elections members that refused to certify the election because they did not agree with the current law at the time. Um, and that they were violating their oath and responsibilities as County Board of Elections members. In a letter presented to the Surrey County Board of Elections on the day of canvass, the members acknowledged that elections in Surrey County were conducted in, quote, full compliance with applicable laws per the North Carolina State Board of Elections, end quote. However, they explained that they didn't view election laws administered by the North Carolina State Board of Elections as, quote, legitimate or constitutional, and declined to certify the election results as, quote, credible. There was a complaint filed against these two members. Um, and yeah, I mean, just to back up, I mean, essentially, these members were saying, we don't like the current election law and we don't agree with it, so we're not going to certify the election results. That is a serious issue. Um, but again, there was a complaint filed against the two members. Ultimately, the board members' actions resulted in their removal from the County Board of Elections in March of 2023 based upon a unanimous and bipartisan vote by the North Carolina State Board of Elections. The State Board of Elections said in a statement that the board members' actions constituted impermissible collateral attacks on court decisions and directives from the state board. Um, and we know this because we had um, a report from Surrey County from someone monitoring there. So, um, you know, I just stress that, um, you know, I always say we don't know what we don't know. And, if we don't have people monitoring in different places, then, we wouldn't know about things and we wouldn't be able to address them. So, um, all of these reports are really important. And, um, you know, we hope actually that it's boring. We hope that it goes smoothly so that, nothing like this happens for for you where you're going. But that's why we want you to be there. It's really important that the board members, I think, see members of the public as well there watching the process. So let's uh, take a look at just to recap what we've talked about. I know this has been a lot of information. So again, we are going to provide all these resources in a follow-up email. You're going to get all these slides. You're going to get this recording. You're going to get even more resources. So you're gonna have everything you need to be prepared. Um, but first, I did want to just take a recap. So, we just talked about why Canvas monitoring is so important. Um, and, we also discussed that these pre-Canvas meetings and Canvas meetings are held between March 4th and March 13th. There will be a pre-election day absentee meeting on March 2nd, and all the counties will meet on March 3rd, election day, to review absentee ballots as well. But I do really want to stress the meeting on March 6th. Most counties are going to be meeting on Friday, March 6th to review provisional ballots. That is where we expect that there will be a lot of where you may see issues come up. That's where they'll be likely reviewing voter ID exception forms and an array of different provisional ballots. So those March 6th meetings are going to be really critical. And again, on March 13th is the actual day of canvass when they certify the results. Many counties will meet on March 12th, the day before, to for pre-canvass meetings to make the day of Canvas go quicker. So let's talk about some of those resources. We have a Canvas monitoring toolkit, and a big thanks to Democracy North Carolina for that. You can go to demnc.co/Canvas Toolkit 26. And again, we are going to provide this in an email follow-up for you. So like I said, all the stuff we've talked about, we have a pretty comprehensive guide there in the toolkit that walks through all of this. We also have we talked about the nonpartisan hotline, 88-hour vote. Again, if you have issues, call that hotline. We also have, you don't see it listed here, we have a one-pager that we will share with you. So the toolkit is, it's got a lot of pages. It goes into detail. This one-pager is something that you can keep with you. You can print out and you can have with you when you go to a meeting. So it's kind of like a little cheat sheet that has all the big highlights for you to know. Then we've also got our volunteer form, ccnc.me/Canvas volunteer form. And I am going to actually take us out of the slideshow for a minute to give a little demo of how that volunteer form works. So this is what the volunteer form looks like. And so you'll just fill out this information here at the top, your name and email, who you're volunteering with, your contact information, and then if you've volunteered with us in the past, or if you've attended a Canvas monitoring training, so you will mark that that you have. If you're an attorney or a legal professional. And then at the bottom here, this is where you can see information about shifts. So all the information I just talked about important dates and all that, that's here. And you will just go here under where it says find your shift, click add shift, and it will come up with all of these shifts that we have for counties. It will, for each shift, it will tell you the type of meeting. If it's pre-election day, that's an absentee meeting where they're, as I said, counties are meeting the day before election day to review absentee ballots. You'll see election day meetings marked that way. I will note that those meetings tend to be longer because they are counting a lot of ballots. Provisional ballot review meetings, that is, again, just about all the counties will be meeting on March 6th to review provisional ballots because they have to approve those ballots by the end of that day due to state law. So you'll see that listed. You'll see some listed as pre-Canvas. And you see that this is on this particular one, Alan, is on the day of Canvas. Some of the pre-Canvas meetings actually happen before the mandated 11 a.m. day of Canvas meeting. So essentially they are just meeting early to take care of business so that they can get out of the Canvas meeting quicker. So you'll see that for some of these. And then each of these you'll see access type that will tell you the type of meeting. So is it what type of access does the public have to that meeting? Is it a meeting that's offered virtually? Is it a meeting that is all of the meetings you can go to in person? But for those that are that have a virtual option, you'll see it listed here as virtual/in person, meaning you have that option. And then the County Board of Elections phone number there. And you can search here. Um, so, that way you don't have to scroll through. If I just wanted to see, okay, I want to take a look at New Hanover County, and there it goes. I just start typing it in, and it comes up with the New Hanover dates. Or if I wanted to look at, um, yeah, any county, it'll just come up with the dates there. So. The other thing that I wanted to show you, um, within this form, you see it. It says here you can see which other volunteers have signed up at this link, ccnc.me/canvas dates. So if you click on this, and I hope my screen, can you all still see this screen? Okay. All right. So this is our big Airtable here. And so this has all of those meeting dates that was in the form, but it is set up so that as you all sign up for shifts, you'll see different people's names come up here in this box under Canvas Monitor Volunteers. And so that way you can check this page and see who has signed up for different shifts, and that can help you in deciding what shifts you want to go to, and this helps us in ensuring that we have coverage throughout the state and throughout different days. What you'll also see here, all this other information, as I talked about, access type, meeting type. You will also see the County Board of Elections address. And as we said before, most of these meetings will happen at the County Board of Elections office. Some of them may happen at another location. And as we said, always call the county board before you go to these meetings because they can change the meet. Even if you see, we have gone through and found these meeting dates and times, but even, you know, between now and next week, there could be changes. So please call them before you go, to ensure that they are still meeting at that date and at that time, and make sure you get the correct location because it might not be the county board of elections address, but usually it's going to be at the county board of elections office. You'll see the county board of elections phone number. You also will see the county board of elections email address, so you can email them too. And then you'll also see a virtual link. So if they do stream their meetings, then there is a direct link there to the virtual link or dial-in instructions. Some of them have an option for you to dial into the meeting. I would encourage you to go in person if you can. It is always better to be in person if possible, but there is a virtual option for some of these meetings. You'll also notice that some of these, you'll see it says time TBD, and that means that we expect the county board to meet on that date, but we don't know the specific time. Either they have not published it or we don't have that information. So if you see that and you want to go to that meeting, then again, and again, even if you see the time, it's always best to just go ahead and call the county board to confirm the meeting date and time. All right. So let's get back. All right. All right. So next steps. So the next thing for you to do is to sign up. And again, we're going to send you that link. It may have already been put in the chat. I haven't been able to look at the chat, but it's ccnc.me/canvas volunteer form. And that will take you to that form that I just showed. And you'll want to look out for an email from us in the coming days that will have all of these resources that we've talked about, the monitoring toolkit, the one pager, the recording, the slides, um, and yeah, and so yeah, you'll just sign up. We encourage you to bring a friend and submit your reports as soon as you can after the meetings. And yeah, please let us know if you have any concerns or questions that come up. And with that, I think we will move into our Q&A section. So let's see what questions we have.
We've been answering a lot of them in the chat, but I want to make sure that everyone, it moved kind of fast there. So I want to make sure because there's a couple repeats. Folks can go to any location, right? You can go to any meeting. And when you use the link that Tyler was just showing us, it's helpful for you to look at the second link that he shared, the Airtable, to see which haven't been filled up yet. So there's a lot of meetings, and if even if everyone here goes to 2 meetings, there's a lot, right? So we would encourage you to look at that so that like 7 people don't go to one meeting. If there's 2 people who can go on Tuesday and 2 people on Wednesday, that would be best case because then we have all the coverage everywhere. So like Tyler mentioned, don't worry about grabbing it from the chat. We will definitely email you that link, but just remember that within the sign up, there's that link to the full list. And we would love for you to check that out first. If you have trouble with the technology or if you're having issues, certainly can reach out. But we tried to make it so that you can, well, not me, Tyler, our hero. Tyler made it like that so that you can double check and we can not overcrowd at one location. There was also several questions about what to do when you get there. And I know we talked about introducing yourself. It's really up to you how you want to introduce yourself to the Board of Elections members. You certainly can identify as a volunteer with one of these groups. They're familiar with us, I think, at this point. We've been doing this for a long time. So if you're comfortable with saying, hey, I'm here because DMNC sent me or Common Cause sent me or Southern Coalition for Social Justice, that is great. You might just say, hey, I'm a voter. I live here and I'm curious about the process. It's up to you, right? But it does help with that relationship building as we talked about earlier. And then there was one more that I said, oh, the length. There was several questions back and forth about the length of the meetings. It's really going to depend on how many ballots there are. So unfortunately, we can't give you a guarantee there. It might be 20 minutes or 30 minutes. It might be 3 hours, right? It depends on if you're going to a Wake County meeting, it's probably not going to be 20 minutes because that's a huge county. But we still want you to go. But they can be fun, right? There's going to be breaks. So, and if you can't stay the whole time, that's also why we're here today to try to get coverage for the whole time. So, I think those were the ones that I saw the most of. Anybody else, though, jump in if I skipped over the most common questions, but I saw those.
And just to, yeah, I had mentioned before, we are going to send the presentation, the recording and the slide deck, so don't worry about that. I know it was also asked about if the board goes into private session. And I think Lucas answered this in the chat, but that these meetings are public meetings, so there are certain instances where they may go into private or closed session, but that they should state clearly why that is. That should not typically happen during a Canvas meeting. But again, as we talked about, if they do not state why, that would be a reason to call the hotline.
Catching up. There's often a sign-in sheet, so you could put your name there as well. Let's see. I don't think you necessarily have to sign in. I see your question about if you're concerned about someone knowing that you were there, but it is helpful, I think, for the board. I think Tyler mentioned like we like to go in person if possible because that shows that we're watching and we're paying attention and we're there. But if you're concerned or have a reason not to put your name down, I think that would be okay. Um, Jolie, I hope I'm pronouncing that. I think whatever you're comfortable with. You can introduce yourself however you prefer, as a poll worker or not. Um, all right. All right. So we're right at 7. We actually hope to try something new with you all. So hopefully this is a good time to jump into our new section on this kind of training. We are going to open breakout rooms for just about 4 or 5 minutes to give you a chance to meet other people that are in your region that may or may not be going to the same types of meeting or areas that you are going to be in. I will preface this by saying I made the breakout rooms and there's a character limit, so you're not going to see every single county. And I apologize about that. But there's some options here where you can self-select. So I'm going to open the breakout rooms. We broke these into 7 sections of the state. And keep in mind, this can be where you live now and where you're a voter. It could be where you plan to canvass because you know we need more people in the next county over. It doesn't have to be an exact match, and it's okay if you don't see your county listed. But we have this like the far, far west, Cherokee, Jackson, Buncombe, the kind of west part of the state, Watauga, Wilkes, Surrey, Avery, Ashe kind of area. There's a Mecklenburg room, which everyone knows there's a Mecklenburg region of our state. That can, Cleveland, Catawba, Union. Oh, thank you, Tyler. Yes. The Triad region, which also, again, is going to be more than can fit on here, but the names of the city or the counties are here. Triangle, we kind of use that word loosely now, right? That can go anywhere from Chatham, Durham, Orange, Wake, Person, Granville, Franklin. The Northeast in Halifax, Nash, Edgecombe region, all the way out to Hyde and Dare and Perquimans. And then the Southeast, Brunswick, New Hanover, Pender, Sampson, all those, Robeson, Cumberland. So again, I apologize that you're not going to see every single county because there's a character limit, but we're just going to open these rooms for about 5 minutes. And when it pops up on your screen, you'll be able to self-select which room you want to go into. So it's really up to you, and I hope this works. I'm going to open them now and see, hopefully that popped up for y'all and you can self-select. If you have further questions, one of us is gonna stay back in this main room and Adrian is our best legal friend is gonna have time there if you have additional questions, but we would love for you just to take a minute, go into a room, introduce yourselves, and then we'll come back together and close out.